The bridge of the USS Valiant hummed with quiet activity as Captain Daniel Hayes reviewed the patrol route on his display. Stars stretched endlessly beyond the reinforced windows, beautiful and cold in their silence. Daniel had been commanding this destroyer for 3 years now, and routine patrols like this one usually passed without incident. The crew worked efficiently at their stations, monitoring sensors and maintaining systems with practiced ease. Lieutenant Maya Turner sat at the tactical station, her fingers dancing across holographic controls as she tracked nearby vessels. She was young but sharp, with an instinct for combat situations that had saved them more than once. Beside her, Lieutenant Sophie Blake handled navigation, plotting their course along the border of human space with careful precision. Down in engineering, Commander Peter Grant supervised the reactor core, making small adjustments to keep their systems running at peak efficiency. The Valiant was one of Earth's newest warships, equipped with advanced weapons and shields that represented humanity's best technology. They were proud of their ship and their mission to protect human colonies scattered across this sector. The distress signal came without warning. Lieutenant Blake's console lit up with urgent alerts. She frowned, studying the data streaming across her screen. "Captain, I'm picking up a transmission. It's faint, but it's definitely a distress beacon." Daniel straightened in his command chair. "Origin?" Blake's expression shifted from confusion to shock. "Sir, it's coming from inside the Forbidden Zone." The bridge went silent. Every officer turned to look at the captain. The Forbidden Zone was legendary throughout the galaxy, a vast region of space that the Dominion Empire had sealed off thousands of years ago. No one knew exactly what lay inside, but the law was absolute and clear. Any ship that crossed the boundary would be destroyed immediately. The Dominion enforced this rule with ruthless efficiency, and no species had ever dared to challenge it. "Are you certain?" Daniel asked, though he already knew Blake wouldn't make such a claim unless she was sure. "Yes, sir. The signal is definitely human origin. Old encryption codes, maybe 40 or 50 years old." Blake worked her controls, enhancing the signal. "Captain, I think it might be the Horizon's Hope." Daniel felt his blood run cold. The Horizon's Hope was a colony ship that had vanished decades ago with over 500 people aboard. Families still held memorial services every year, mourning the lost colonists. The ship had been declared destroyed, lost to some unknown disaster in deep space. "Can you confirm that identification?" Daniel asked. Blake nodded slowly. "The signature matches archived data. It's them, Captain. They're alive in there." Lieutenant Turner spoke up from Tactical. "Sir, if we even approach that boundary, the Dominion will consider it an act of war. Their patrol fleets monitor every inch of that border." "I'm aware of the situation, Lieutenant." Daniel stood and walked to the main view screen, staring at the coordinates Blake had marked. 500 people. Colonists who had families waiting for them back on Earth. Children who had grown up thinking their parents were dead. Commander Grant's voice crackled over the intercom. "Captain, I'm getting readings from navigation. Please tell me we're not actually considering this." Daniel didn't answer immediately. He thought about the regulations, about his orders from Earth Command to maintain peaceful relations with the Dominion. He thought about the consequences of violating the most sacred law in the galaxy, but mostly he thought about 500 human beings who had been waiting 40 years for rescue. Lieutenant Blake set a course for those coordinates. Maximum speed. The bridge erupted in surprised voices. Turner stood from her station. "Captain, with all respect, this is insane. The Dominion will send everything they have after us." "I know what they'll send, Lieutenant, but I also know that we don't abandon our people. Those colonists have been waiting long enough." Daniel turned to face his crew, seeing the fear and uncertainty in their eyes. "I won't order any of you to follow me into this. Anyone who wants to can take a shuttle back to the nearest station. There will be no consequences, no judgment. This is my decision and I'll take full responsibility." No one moved. After a long moment, Lieutenant Blake's hands moved across her controls. "Course plotted, Captain. We can reach the boundary in 30 minutes. Turner sat back down at her station, her jaw set with determination. "If we're doing this, we should go in ready. I'll prep all weapons systems and bring shields to full power." Down in engineering, Grant's voice came back over the intercom, steadier this time. "Engineering is with you, Captain. We'll keep this ship running no matter what they throw at us." Daniel felt a surge of pride in his crew. They were scared, but they were also committed. That was what made humans special in this galaxy full of older, more powerful species. Humans didn't always follow the safe path. Sometimes they did what was right instead of what was easy. The Valiant accelerated, its powerful engines pushing them toward the border at speeds that made space itself seem to blur. The crew worked in tense silence, each officer focused on their duties while their minds raced with thoughts of what was coming. Lieutenant Kyle Morris, the chief science officer, spoke up from his station. "Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings near the source of the distress signal. Something big is in there, something that doesn't match any known technology." "The Dominion secret?" Maya wondered aloud. "Maybe that's why they guard it so carefully," Morris replied. "These readings are off the scale. Whatever's generating this energy, it's ancient and incredibly powerful." The boundary appeared on their sensors, an invisible line in space marked only by warning beacons that broadcast Dominion threats in every known language. As they approached, automated messages began flooding their communication system. Warnings, threats, orders to turn back immediately or face destruction. Daniel ignored them all. "Crossing the boundary in 10 seconds, Blake announced, her voice tight with tension. The crew held their breath. Maya's fingers hovered over the weapons controls. Grant monitored every system, ready to redirect power at a moment's notice. Medical Officer Dr. Lisa Morgan prepared her bay for potential casualties. 5 seconds, Daniel gripped the arms of his command. Chair. 3, 2, 1. The USS Valiant crossed into the forbidden zone. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then across the sector, Dominion sensor arrays lit up with blazing red alerts. Alarms screamed in command centers on a dozen worlds. Fleet commanders were yanked from their sleep, staring at displays that showed the impossible. A human warship had violated the ancient law. The Empire began to mobilize, and across their territory a single emotion spread like wildfire: fear. Fleet Commander Zarthek stood before the massive holographic display in his command center, his 4 eyes narrowing as he studied the human vessel's trajectory. The Dominion warrior was tall and imposing, his scaled skin bearing the scars of countless battles. In his 300 years of service, he had never witnessed such blatant defiance of imperial law. "How did they cross the boundary?" he demanded, his voice a low growl that made his subordinates flinch. "Unknown, Commander," replied his tactical officer. "They simply flew through as if the warnings meant nothing. Our automated defenses attempted to engage, but the ship was too fast." Zarthek studied the data streaming across his display. The human ship was small by Dominion standards, barely larger than a patrol corvette. Yet it moved with impressive speed, and its energy signature suggested advanced shielding. The humans were a young species, newcomers to the galactic stage who had only achieved faster-than-light travel a century ago. They should have been intimidated by the Dominion's power. They should have known better. "Assemble Battle Group 7, Zarthek ordered. 12 warships. We'll surround them and force their surrender. If they resist, destroy them completely. Leave no evidence of this intrusion." On the USS Valiant, Lieutenant Morris hunched over his science station, his displays filled with strange readings. The energy signatures he had detected earlier were growing stronger as they pushed deeper into the forbidden zone. Whatever was generating this power, it was massive and ancient beyond anything in the Earth database. "Captain, you need to see this," Morris called out. "I'm detecting structures ahead. Artificial structures on a scale that shouldn't be possible." Daniel moved to stand beside the science officer, studying the data. The readings showed something enormous, a construction that dwarfed anything humanity had ever built. "Can you determine its origin?" "Not with certainty, sir. But based on the energy decay patterns, this thing has been here for at least 50,000 years, maybe longer." Maya looked up from her tactical station, her expression grim. "Captain, Dominion fleet signatures detected. Multiple contacts coming in fast from bearing 270. I count 12 warships, heavy cruiser class or larger." Daniel felt his stomach tighten. 12 Dominion warships against his single destroyer. The odds were impossible. But turning back wasn't an option. Not when they were so close to the horizon's hope. "Time to intercept?" 18 minutes at their current speed, Maya reported. "They're spreading out, trying to box us in. Blake, what's between us and those coordinates?" Sophie Blake studied her navigation charts, her fingers moving quickly across the controls. "There's an asteroid field about 6 minutes ahead. Dense formation, lots of debris. It would be dangerous to navigate, but their larger ships wouldn't be able to follow. That's our play then. Take us into that field. Full speed." The Valiant surged forward, its engines burning bright as it raced toward the asteroid field. Behind them, the Dominion fleet adjusted course, their massive vessels moving to cut off escape routes. Zarthek watched the human ship's trajectory with growing frustration. They were heading into the debris field, a move that spoke of either desperation or surprising tactical awareness. "They're more clever than expected," he admitted to his tactical officer. "But cleverness won't save them. Position our ships at every exit point from that field. When they emerge, we'll have them trapped." The asteroid field loomed before the Valiant, a swirling chaos of rock and ice that stretched for thousands of kilometers. Blake's hands were steady on the controls despite the tension radiating through the bridge. "Entering the field now, Captain. This is going to be rough." The destroyer plunged into the asteroids, and immediately the ship began to shake. Rocks the size of buildings tumbled past them, some close enough that the shields crackled with energy as they deflected impacts. Blake weaved through the chaos with impressive skill, her years of training guiding every maneuver. "Shield strength at 85%, Maya reported. Multiple impacts across the hull. An alarm blared from engineering. Grant's voice came over the intercom, strained but controlled. "Captain, we've got a problem. That last impact damaged one of the stabilizers. We're losing maneuvering capability. Can you fix it?" "Working on it, but I need time." Time was the one thing they didn't have. Daniel watched the tactical display as the Dominion ships spread out around the asteroid field, blocking every obvious exit. They were patient, willing to wait for the humans to emerge or be crushed by the asteroids. Dr. Morgan's medical bay was quiet but tense. She had prepared for casualties, setting up emergency equipment and organizing supplies. Her assistant, Lieutenant Jacob Wells, helped secure the medical supplies against the ship's constant shaking. Wells was officially the security chief, but with the ship in danger, everyone had to help wherever they could. "How bad do you think this will get?" Wells asked, his voice low. Lisa didn't sugarcoat it. "If we face 12 Dominion warships in direct combat, we won't survive more than a few minutes." Deep in engineering, Grant and his team worked frantically to repair the damaged stabilizer. Sparks flew as they bypassed burned circuits and rerouted power systems. The chief engineer's uniform was covered in grease and coolant, but his focus never wavered. "I need more power to the port stabilizer," he shouted over the noise. "Redirect from the secondary systems." "Sir, that will leave us vulnerable if we take another hit," one of his engineers warned. "We're already vulnerable. Just do it." On the bridge, Morris suddenly sat up straight, his eyes wide. "Captain, I found them. The Horizon's Hope is 300 kilometers ahead, just on the other side of this field. Their power systems are minimal, but they're intact." Relief washed over Daniel, followed immediately by renewed tension. They had found the lost colonists, but they were still trapped with a Dominion fleet waiting to destroy them. "Blake, can you get us there?" "Yes, sir, but it won't be pretty. I'll need to take us through a narrow channel between two large asteroid clusters. If we clip anything at this speed, we're done." "Do it." The Valiant dove deeper into the field, threading through gaps that seemed impossibly small. The ship groaned under the stress, metal creaking and systems straining. Maya kept her eyes on the tactical display, watching the Dominion ships adjust their positions. They were confident, certain that the humans would either be destroyed by the asteroids or forced to emerge into their trap. "Engineering to bridge," Grant's voice came through, triumphant despite the exhaustion in his tone. "Stabilizer is back online. It's not perfect, but it'll hold. Good work, Commander. Stand by for more trouble." The Valiant burst out of the asteroid field, and there it was. The Horizon's Hope drifted in the darkness, its hull scarred but intact. The colony ship was larger than the Valiant, designed to carry hundreds of people in cryogenic suspension across the vast distances between stars. It looked dead, its windows dark and its engines cold. But Morris's sensors showed life signs aboard. Faint but definitely there. "We found them," Maya whispered, a smile breaking across her tense features. "After 40 years, we actually found them." Daniel allowed himself a moment of satisfaction before reality reasserted itself. "Blake, bring us alongside. Wells, prep a boarding team. We need to assess their condition and see if we can get them moving." "Captain," Maya said, her smile fading, "the Dominion fleet is repositioning. They'll have us in weapons range in 4 minutes." Daniel looked at the view screen, seeing both the hope represented by the Horizon's Hope and the threat closing in around them. They had crossed the forbidden zone and found the lost colonists. But now came the hard part, surviving long enough to bring them home. The Dominion fleet formed a perfect sphere around the two human vessels, their weapons powered and ready. Sarthik stood on his command deck, watching the tactical display with cold satisfaction. The humans had nowhere to run. Their desperate rescue attempt had brought them exactly where he wanted them. "Open a channel," he ordered. On the Valiant's bridge, Maya looked up from her station. "Sir, incoming transmission from the Dominion flagship." "Put it through." Sarthek's image appeared on the view screen, his alien features harsh and unforgiving. "Human vessel, you have violated the most sacred law of the Dominion Empire. For this crime, the penalty is death. Power down your weapons and prepare to be destroyed." Daniel stood, meeting the alien commander's gaze steadily. "We came here to rescue our people. That colony ship has been lost for 40 years. We're not leaving without them. Then you will die with them. You have 1 minute to reconsider." The channel closed. Daniel turned to his crew, seeing the fear in their eyes but also the determination. They had come too far to give up now. "Maya, I need options." The tactical officer studied her displays, running calculations. "Sir, if we vent our reactor core, we can create a radiation screen. It'll blind their sensors temporarily. If we fire everything we have at the same time, we might punch through their formation." "Might." Grant's voice came over the intercom. "Captain, that plan will leave us with barely enough power to limp away. If it doesn't work, we'll be dead in space. If we don't try something, we're dead anyway. Grant, prep the reactor vent. Maya, target the weakest point in their formation." Sophie Blake worked her navigation controls, plotting an escape vector. "Sir, if we make it through, I can get us back to that ancient structure Morris detected. The energy readings there might interfere with their targeting systems. Do it." "Wells, how's the boarding team?" Lieutenant Wells led a squad of 6 security personnel through the airlock connecting the Valiant to the Horizon's Hope. Their magnetic boots clanked against the colony ship's hull as they moved through the dark corridors. Emergency lights flickered weakly, barely illuminating their path. "We're inside, Captain," Wells reported. "Power levels are minimal. Life support is running on backup batteries. Heading to cryogenic bay now." The boarding team moved carefully through the silent ship, their helmet lights cutting through the darkness. Every surface was covered in a thin layer of frost. The temperature had dropped to barely above freezing to conserve power for the cryo systems. Wells pushed open the doors to the main cryogenic bay, and his breath caught. Hundreds of cryopods lined the walls, their status lights glowing a soft blue. Inside each pod, a colonist slept peacefully, unaware that decades had passed. "Captain, you need to see this," Wells said, his voice filled with emotion. "They're all here. Every single colonist. They're alive." On the Valiant's bridge, Daniel felt relief flood through him. 500 people preserved and waiting for rescue. Whatever happened next, finding them made everything worthwhile. "Can you revive them?" he asked. "Negative, sir. The ship's power levels are too low. If we try to bring them out of cryo now, the systems will fail. We need to restore main power first, and that'll take hours. Hours they didn't have. The Dominion fleet was closing in, weapons charging for the final strike. Morris, what about that ancient structure? Can we reach it?" The science officer studied his readings carefully. "Yes, sir, but Captain, the energy readings are intensifying. Whatever that thing is, it's responding to our presence. I'm detecting activation patterns in systems that have been dormant for thousands of years." "Is it dangerous?" "Unknown. But it's definitely aware of us." Daniel made his decision. "Wells, secure the colonists and get back to the Valiant. Everyone else prepare for combat. We're going to try Maya's plan, and we're heading for that structure." The Dominion ships began their attack run, moving in perfect formation. Zarthek watched with cold efficiency as his fleet prepared to eliminate the human vessels. It was a shame, really. The humans had shown courage in coming here, but courage without wisdom was merely foolishness. "Fire when ready," he commanded. "Now," Daniel shouted. The Valiant's reactor core vented in a controlled explosion, releasing a massive wave of radiation that swept across the battlefield. Dominion sensors went blind, their displays filling with static. At the same instant, every weapon on the Valiant fired, concentrating their output on a single point in the enemy formation. The barrage struck 2 Dominion cruisers, overwhelming their shields and forcing them to break formation. The gap lasted only seconds, but seconds were enough. Blake pushed the engines to maximum, threading the Valiant through the opening with Wells and his team barely back aboard. Explosions bloomed across the Valiant's shields as Dominion weapons fired blindly through the radiation cloud. The ship shook violently, alarm screaming as systems failed. Grant worked frantically in engineering, rerouting power and patching damaged systems. Hull breach on Deck 3. Maya reported. Emergency force fields holding. Keep us moving, Daniel ordered. The Valiant broke free of the Dominion formation, racing toward the ancient structure with the Horizon's Hope in tow, connected by magnetic grapples. Behind them, Zarthek roared in fury as his sensors cleared and he saw the human ships escaping. After them. All ships pursue and destroy. The chase was on. 12 Dominion warships against 2 human vessels, one barely armed and the other nearly destroyed. The ancient structure grew larger on their view screens, a massive construction of materials that Morris couldn't identify. It was circular, like a giant ring standing vertically in space, its surface covered in patterns that seemed to shift and flow. What is that thing? Maya breathed. Morris's instruments were going wild. Captain, it's a gateway, a portal to somewhere else. The technology is beyond anything I've ever seen. This predates every civilization in the galaxy. Can we use it? I don't know. It's activating, responding to our approach and the weapons fire from the Dominion fleet, but I have no idea what will happen if we get too close. The Dominion ships were gaining, their superior speed closing the distance. Weapons fire lanced through space, striking the Valiant's weakening shields. Another hit and they would lose power completely. Captain, we're not going to make it, Blake said, her voice tight with stress. Daniel stared at the gateway, at the ancient alien construction that the Dominion had kept hidden for millennia. This was why they guarded the Forbidden Zone so carefully. This was the secret they would kill to protect. Take us through, he said, sir. You heard me, Lieutenant. Take us straight into that gateway. Full speed. Blake hesitated for only a moment, then her hands flew across the controls. The Valiant and Horizon's Hope accelerated directly toward the massive ring, their engines burning at maximum output. Zarthek saw their trajectory and felt a chill run through his body. No, stop them. Fire everything. The Dominion fleet unleashed a devastating barrage, every weapon firing at once. Energy beams and missiles filled the space between them and the human ships. The gateway began to glow, brilliant light emanating from its center as ancient systems powered up. On the Valiant, Morris shouted a warning. Captain, the gateway is generating a massive energy pulse. It's going to release in seconds. The Dominion weapons reached the human ships just as they entered the gateway's ring. Light exploded across the battlefield, brighter than a star, washing over everything. The pulse expanded outward in a perfect sphere, catching the Dominion fleet in its embrace, and then silence. When the light faded, the USS Valiant and Horizon's Hope floated peacefully near the gateway. Their systems were intact, their crews shaken but alive. The Dominion fleet was dark. Every ship hung motionless in space, their power systems completely dead. Inside those vessels, Zarthek and his crew stared at blank displays in shock and growing terror, realizing they were helpless. The bridge of the USS Valiant was completely silent. Every crew member stared at the view screen, trying to process what had just happened. Around them, 12 massive Dominion warships drifted helplessly, dark and powerless. The ancient gateway pulsed with fading light behind them, its energy slowly returning to dormant levels. Daniel was the first to find his voice. Status report. All stations. Maya checked her tactical systems, her hands shaking slightly. All weapons operational. Shields at 30% and recovering. Captain, the Dominion ships are completely dead. No power signatures, no weapons, nothing. But their life support appears to be running on backup systems. Morris, what just happened? The science officer studied his displays with wide eyes, data streaming across multiple screens. The gateway released an energy pulse, sir. It appears to be some kind of defensive system. But it's selective. It only affected the Dominion ships, the ones that were firing weapons. We passed through unharmed. Why? Blake asked. Why would it spare us? Morris shook his head slowly. I can only guess, but based on the readings, the gateway seems to distinguish between aggressive and non-aggressive behavior. The Dominion fleet was attacking. We were fleeing. The system protected us and disabled our attackers. Lieutenant Wells spoke up from his station. Captain, that means the Dominion knew this was here all along. They knew what would happen if anyone fought near this thing. The implication settled over the crew like a heavy weight. The Dominion Empire, the most powerful force in the galaxy, had built their reputation on fear of the Forbidden Zone. But it wasn't their power that protected this place. It was ancient technology they didn't control, couldn't control, and were terrified others might discover. That's why they made it forbidden, Maya said quietly. Not to protect some secret weapon, to hide their weakness. Daniel stood and walked to the view screen, looking at the disabled fleet. Thousands of Dominion warriors trapped in those dead ships, their life support running on limited backup power. Without help, they would suffocate within hours. Sir, Maya said carefully, we should leave. Jump to faster than light speed while we can. The Dominion will send more ships, and we need to get the colonists home. She was right. The tactical choice was clear. But Daniel thought about those warriors and their disabled ships, waiting to die in the darkness. He thought about what made humans different from the other species in the galaxy. Open a broadcast channel, all frequencies. Maya looked confused but complied. Channel open, sir. Daniel took a breath and spoke clearly. This is Captain Daniel Hayes of the Earth vessel USS Valiant. We came to the Forbidden Zone to rescue our people, colonists who have been lost for 40 years. We have discovered the gateway that the Dominion Empire has hidden from the galaxy, and we are broadcasting the coordinates and information about this structure on all channels. Every species in this sector will now know what the Dominion has been protecting. On his command ship, Zarthek listened to the transmission with growing horror. His backup systems were weak but strong enough to receive communications. The human was revealing everything, destroying millennia of carefully constructed secrecy. Daniel continued speaking. The Dominion fleet attempted to destroy us, but the Gateway's defense systems disabled their ships. Their crews are alive but powerless, with limited life support. We are not leaving them to die. Humanity does not abandon people in need, even our enemies. We are beginning rescue operations now. Zarthek couldn't believe what he was hearing. The humans, who had every reason to flee or leave the Dominion crews to their fate, were going to help them. On the Valiant, the crew reacted with shock. Wells stepped forward. Captain, with respect, they tried to kill us. They were going to destroy the Horizon's hope and every colonist aboard. I know what they tried to do, Lieutenant. But we're better than that. We're better than leaving people to die when we can save them. Daniel turned to face his officers. The Dominion built their empire on fear and strength. Let's show them what humanity builds on instead. Dr. Morgan's voice came over the intercom from medical. Captain, if we're doing this, I'll need help. Dominion physiology is different from human. I'm not sure how to treat them if anyone is injured. Do your best, Doctor. Wells, take your team and prepare to board those vessels. Bring medical supplies and portable power generators. Grant, can we extend our life support to their ships? From engineering, Grant responded. It'll strain our systems, sir, but yes. We can rig temporary connections. Give me 20 minutes. The crew moved into action, driven by their captain's decision. They gathered supplies, prepared rescue equipment, and calculated how to reach the disabled ships safely. Maya coordinated the rescue operations. Her tactical skills adapted to this unexpected mission. Across the sector, Daniel's broadcast was received by dozens of civilizations. Ships changed course to investigate. News networks began reporting on the incredible discovery. The Dominion's secret was spreading like wildfire through the galaxy, and there was no way to contain it. On multiple Dominion worlds, military commanders watched in disbelief as their carefully maintained image of invincibility crumbled. Political leaders scrambled to respond, to spin this revelation somehow, but the truth was undeniable. Their power had been built on hiding a weakness, and now everyone knew. Wells and his team crossed to the nearest Dominion warship, connecting their portable airlock to the vessel's hull. They cut through the outer doors carefully, entering the dark corridors with flashlights and emergency equipment. Inside, they found Dominion warriors slumped at their stations, struggling with backup systems that provided minimal power. The aliens were larger than humans, covered in scales, with multiple eyes that tracked the boarding team with a mixture of fear and confusion. Wells raised his hands, showing he carried no weapons. We're here to help. Where you're injured. One of the Dominion officers, speaking halting but understandable English, pointed down a corridor. Medical bay, 3 deck. Explosion damage. Wounded there. Dr. Morgan arrived with her team carrying medical supplies and scanners. She immediately began assessing the injured Dominion crew members, working quickly despite her unfamiliarity with their physiology. Her training and instincts took over, finding ways to treat their wounds even though they were alien. Grant and his engineers worked on the Dominion ship's power systems, carefully restoring basic functions. Your reactor core is intact, he explained to the ship's engineer through a translator. But your control systems were fried by that pulse. We can bypass the damage and get you partial power, enough to run life support and basic systems. The Dominion engineer watched in amazement as the humans worked on technology they had never seen before, finding solutions with remarkable speed. Zarthek sat in his command chair, listening to reports from throughout his fleet. The humans were everywhere, helping his crews, restoring systems, treating the injured. His communication officer managed to restore minimal communications and looked at him with confusion. Commander, orders? The humans are boarding our vessels. Let them. Zarthek said quietly. They're saving our lives. Hours passed. The rescue operations continued across all 12 disabled ships. Human engineers worked alongside Dominion crews to restore power. Dr. Morgan and her medical team treated over 50 injured warriors. Wells and his security team distributed supplies and helped evacuate crew members from damaged sections. Throughout it all, ships from other civilizations began arriving. They came to see the gateway, to verify the truth of Daniel's broadcast, to witness humanity's first real impact on galactic politics. On the Valiant's bridge, Maya monitored the growing crowd of vessels. Captain, we have over 30 ships in the area now, more arriving every hour. Multiple species all wanting to know about the gateway. Any threats? No, sir. They're just watching, waiting to see what happens next. Morris studied the gateway's energy patterns. Captain, I'm detecting similar structures throughout the galaxy. Dozens of them. This isn't unique. The ancient civilization that built these things created a network, all connected somehow. Daniel absorbed this information, understanding its significance. The Dominion hadn't just hidden one gateway. They had concealed an entire network of ancient technology that could change the balance of power throughout the galaxy. On his damaged command ship, now running on human-supplied power, Zarthek made a decision that would have been unthinkable hours before. He activated his restored communications and opened a channel to the Valiant. Daniel's face appeared on his view screen. Commander Zarthek, how are your crews? Alive, thanks to you. Zarthek struggled with what he needed to say. In his entire military career, he had never imagined speaking these words. Captain Hayes, I request permission to speak with you directly. Ship to ship. Permission granted. We'll prepare a shuttle for you. Fleet Commander Zarthek stood in the Valiant's conference room, towering over the human officers gathered around the table. His scaled skin bore fresh medical patches where Dr. Morgan had treated minor injuries from the gateway's pulse. He looked at each human face, reading the exhaustion, determination, and caution in their expressions. Daniel gestured to a chair modified to accommodate the Dominion commander's larger frame. Please sit. Can we offer you anything? Zarthek sat slowly, unused to such courtesy from those he had recently tried to destroy. No, thank you. I do not have much time. My government will be sending more fleets, and when they arrive, the situation will become complicated. We're aware. What did you want to discuss? The Dominion commander was silent for a moment, choosing his words carefully. 5,000 years ago, my people discovered this gateway. We were expanding our empire, conquering worlds, building what we thought was unstoppable military power. Then we found this place and learned the truth. Maya leaned forward. What truth? That our strength meant nothing. We sent a fleet through this region, weapons ready, confident in our superiority. The gateway activated just as it did today. Every ship was disabled. Thousands of warriors left helpless. Zarthek's voice carried the weight of ancient shame. We could have asked for help, but pride would not allow it. Instead, we declared this place forbidden. We told other species it was too dangerous to enter. That terrible weapons guarded it. We built our empire's reputation on fear of this zone. Lieutenant Morris spoke up from his position at the table. But you were really just afraid someone would discover your weakness. Yes. For 5 millennia, we maintained this lie. We destroyed any ship that came close, claiming we were enforcing ancient law. In truth, we were protecting our secret. Zarthek looked directly at Daniel. Today you expose that lie to the galaxy. The foundation of Dominion power has crumbled. So what happens now? Daniel asked. That depends on you, Captain. You could have left us to die. You could have fled with your colonists and let the galaxy tear my empire apart. Instead, you saved us. Why? Daniel considered the question seriously. Because it was the right thing to do. Humans believe in helping others even when it's difficult. especially when it's difficult. We're not perfect, Commander. We've made plenty of mistakes in our history, but we try to learn from them. We try to be better. Zarthek studied the human captain with something approaching wonder. In all my years, I have never encountered a species that would aid their enemies at such cost to themselves. Maybe that's the problem, Maya said quietly. You've spent so long thinking about enemies and conquests that you forgot about cooperation and mercy. The Dominion commander stood, his massive frame casting shadows across the conference room. Captain Hayes, when my government's reinforcements arrive, they will demand your surrender. They will want to silence this incident, to destroy you and reclaim control of the situation. I cannot stop them. We understand the risks we took coming here, but you should also understand this. Zarthek placed one clawed hand over his chest in what appeared to be a Dominion gesture of respect. You have allies now. My entire fleet, every warrior who you saved today will speak the truth about what happened here. We will testify that humans showed honor and compassion when we showed only aggression. That will mean something in the days ahead. As if on cue, Maya's console chimed with an urgent alert. Captain, multiple ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel. It's a diplomatic convoy. I'm reading vessels from Earth, the Federation Councils, the Trade Alliance, and at least 15 other governments. Daniel stood, exchanging glances with Zarthek. The galaxy is coming to see what we found. Over the next several hours, the area around the gateway became the most important location in known space. Diplomatic ships arrived in a steady stream, their representatives eager to examine the ancient structure and hear first-hand accounts of what had transpired. Earth sent Admiral Catherine Price, a veteran diplomat who took command of the situation with practiced efficiency. She met with Daniel privately aboard the Valiant, listening to his report without interruption. You realize what you've done? She said when he finished. You've changed the political landscape of the entire galaxy. The Dominion's influence is collapsing. Multiple species are demanding access to the Gateway network. There are calls for a new Galactic Council, one where humans have a seat. We just wanted to rescue our people, Daniel said quietly. And you did. Dr. Morgan reports the colonists are stable and can be safely revived once we get them to a proper facility. 500 people whose families had given up for dead will go home because you were willing to risk everything. Admiral Price smiled. You also started something bigger than a rescue mission. You started a conversation about what kind of galaxy we want to live in. On the Horizon's Hope, engineers from multiple species worked together to restore the colony ship systems. Grant supervised human crews while consulting with Dominion engineers who had crossed over to help. The cooperation would have been unthinkable days ago, but the events at the Gateway had opened doors that might never close. Lieutenant Wells coordinated security as various diplomatic teams toured the Gateway structure. Morris worked with scientists from a dozen civilizations, pooling their knowledge to understand the ancient technology. Sophie Blake calculated jump routes for the increasing traffic through the sector. Dr. Morgan supervised the revival process for the colonists, carefully bringing them out of cryogenic suspension one by one. The first to wake was a woman named Helen Carter, who had been a teacher on Earth before joining the colony expedition. She opened her eyes slowly, confused by the unfamiliar faces surrounding her medical bed. "Where am I?" she asked weakly. "What happened?" Lisa smiled warmly. "You're safe. You've been in cryo-sleep for 40 years, but you're safe now. We found you." Helen's eyes widened. 40 years? My daughter, she was only 5 when we left. She'll be 45 years old with children of her own, Lisa said gently. "She's waiting to hear from you." "They all are, all the families. You're going home." Tears streamed down Helen's face as the reality sank in. Around the medical bay, other colonists began waking, each one greeted with the same message. They had been lost, but now they were found. Time had passed, but they were finally going home. 3 days after crossing into the Forbidden Zone, Daniel stood on the observation deck of the Valiant, watching the activity around the Gateway. Dozens of ships moved in careful patterns, scientists and diplomats working to establish protocols for studying the ancient network. Zarthek's fleet had been restored to basic functionality, enough to limp back to Dominion space. Before they left, the commander sent one final message to Daniel, thanking him again and promising that he would tell his people the truth about humanity's actions. Maya joined Daniel at the observation window, looking tired but satisfied. Admiral Price says we can head home tomorrow. The colonists are stable, the diplomatic teams are taking over, and someone else can deal with all this politics stuff. How do you feel about everything that happened? She thought about it carefully. Scared, proud, confused about what comes next. But mostly I'm glad we did it. Those 500 people get their lives back because we didn't turn away. And the galaxy changed because we crossed a forbidden line. Maybe it needed to change. Maybe everyone was so busy following old rules that they forgot to question whether those rules still made sense. Daniel smiled.
Lieutenant, are you becoming a philosopher on me?
Someone has to balance out your reckless heroism, Captain. Lieutenant Morris approached them, his usual serious expression replaced with barely contained excitement. Captain, you need to see these readings. We've mapped 47 gateways so far, all connected in a network spanning the entire galaxy. If we can figure out how to use them, travel times between sectors could be reduced from months to hours. That's incredible work, Morris, but I think I'm going to leave that project to someone else. We've done our part. The Valiant and Horizon's Hope departed the Forbidden Zone together 3 days later, escorted by ships from multiple allied species. The journey home took 2 weeks, time that Daniel used to write detailed reports and help the colonists adjust to the reality of their situation. Helen Carter spent hours each day talking to her daughter via long-range communications, bridging the gap of 40 lost years. Other colonists reconnected with families, learned about the history they had missed, and tried to process the incredible circumstances of their rescue. When they finally reached Earth, the welcome was overwhelming. News networks had been broadcasting the story for weeks. The colonists who had been given up for dead were returning home, rescued from the Forbidden Zone by a captain who had defied an empire. Daniel Hayes and his crew were celebrated as heroes, though Daniel himself seemed uncomfortable with the attention. During interviews, he always redirected credit to his crew, to their courage and skill that had made everything possible. The Dominion Empire entered a period of reformation. The revelation of their deception had damaged their authority, and member species began demanding changes. Zarthek and the warriors he commanded became advocates for a new approach, one based less on fear and more on cooperation.